Seeing double now, ain't ya?
What follows are my initial thoughts and reactions to this book of the Bible. I have not done any outside research regarding the more challenging or problematic passages of Christian scripture. Therefore, do not take whatever criticisms I may make in this video as my final word on the passage or verse in question. I am very likely going to be doing a Bible Revisited series addressing my different issues with the Bible, book by book, after conducting ample outside research. So now, without further ado, let's jump into the review.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I am Carter Brown, and today we are continuing our biblical series on, the books of the Bible. And today I'm going to be discussing and reviewing the book of Luke. My overall thoughts on the book is there's a whole lot of stuff in Luke that is not in Matthew and Mark. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Luke was not one of the disciples. He, I believe, was a doctor and like a historian who he really traveled with Paul more after Jesus had died, and he met some of the other disciples or people that had seen and met Jesus, and he recorded what they told him about Jesus, as I understand it. And he also had the Gospels and manuscripts that he looked at to basically write what he wrote about Jesus. And so there's a whole bunch of extra stories in the book of Luke. They don't really contradict the others, at least in any way that I can see. But there's like the opening of Luke has this whole thing about Zechariah that is not in Matthew and Mark, from what I can remember. There's a whole number of passages that I do not recall being in Matthew and Mark. They're consistent with who Jesus was, and they don't contradict really any of the stories of Jesus in the other books, but they were not in the other books, these stories, some of these extra stories. So I found that interesting about Luke. And overall, Luke, it wasn't necessarily more interesting than Matthew and Mark, but I feel like if I had read Luke first, I would probably like it more than Mark, and maybe even more than Matthew. The thing is I'm kind of getting, as I do this review series on all the books of the Bible, and I'm starting with the Gospels, I'm going through to the end of the New Testament, then going back to the Old Testament, I'm kind of getting bored of reading the same story, essentially the same story over and over again. Even though Luke has a lot of extra stuff in it, it's still telling the same story as Matthew and Mark. And so I don't really have a lot of new stuff to say about Luke that is compelling, except for there are a number of passages I would like to read to you that I found to be pretty fascinating. Jesus was a true radical in a good way. If Jesus were around today, he would also be considered a radical. I mean, the guy, if you think about it, and this has become very apparent to me with Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Jesus was basically homeless for the last 3 years of his life. He did not have anything. He just walked around and talked to people and helped them with his friends, his disciples. And that's pretty radical. But yeah, overall, Luke I found to be a really, really good book. And yeah, Jesus, as you will see through a number of the passages I want to read to you that I found compelling, that either were worded differently or were just not in the other books, proved himself to be even more of a radical in a good way than I already knew him to be. I'd like to read you a couple of my favorite passages from the book of Luke. So this passage has a lot to do with people that claim to be doing God's will but don't do God's will. They, in other words, are just they just wear titles, and this you could translate this to any different group of people. You could say this about just pretty much any religion. There are people that are like, oh yeah, I'm a Hindu, and they don't know what they're talking about. And Jesus here is talking about people that follow him and who don't know what they're talking about. And I find it pretty fascinating what he has to say. He says, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I say? I will show you what he is like who comes to me and hears my words and put them into practice. He is like a man building a house who dug down deep and laid the foundation on rock. When a flood came, the torrent struck that house but could not shake it, because it was well built. But the one who hears my words and does not put them into practice is like a man who built a house on the ground without a foundation. The moment the torrent struck that house, it collapsed and its destruction was complete. In other words, basically the people are like, yeah, I'm a Christian. And then you ask them, so have you ever read the book, the Bible? And they're like, the Bible, what is that? Those people, yeah, they collapse as at the first sign of trouble. And I mean, you can see this, like I said, like in all walks. Like I see a lot of people just on TV and the media who, this doesn't have to do with religion, but you can translate this to other aspects of life. This series is not necessarily specific. I mean, it is about the Bible, but it's also translating to our world around us. But like you see celebrities, almost all celebrities think the exact same thing. Or if they come out and they say something that's somewhat controversial, but they believe to be right, they immediately apologize. Or they change their view because they are afraid of being blacklisted or slandered, and they cave at the first sign of trouble. They will only stand up for things as long as everyone else is standing up for them. There's this passage is a short one. It's Luke 12:18 to 21. Where Jesus is talking about a man who is wanting to build up great wealth for himself in materialism and on earth. And Jesus is telling basically a parable, and this is part of it. Then he said, "This is what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store all my grain and my goods. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of good things laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry." But God said to him, "You fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with anyone who stores up for things for himself but is not rich toward God." Point there is obviously don't try to amass crazy amounts of wealth for yourself on earth for the purpose of you feeling comfortable or you having power or influence or whatever. Like, because when you die, you're going to leave your yachts behind, basically, is what Jesus is saying. And if you're a secular person, this even translates this message translates to you as well, because we're all gonna die, and no matter how much wealth you gain here, you're gonna leave it behind. And so from the Christian perspective, Jesus is definitely saying, store up for yourself a treasure in heaven by doing the will of God, by helping others and all that sort of stuff, because that's true treasure. And I suppose from a secular perspective, if you are that way, it could mean don't waste your time building up mansions and yachts for yourself when you could be out helping others and leaving a legacy that's actually honorable and actually is helpful to the people that you leave behind. Because you're not going to get to take anything with you. What you leave behind is what really matters. Just a couple more passages, all right? Now bear with me. I know, yeah, you're busy. You wanna get going. I understand you don't want to listen to this this Jesus-looking freak. Sometimes I don't want to listen to myself. I live a tortured life because I'm always with myself. But another passage I find to be very interesting was Luke 12:47 to 48, where Jesus says, "That servant who knows his master's will and does not get ready or does not do what his master wants will be beaten with many blows. But the one who does not know and does things deserving punishment will be beaten with few blows. From everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded. And from the one who has been entrusted with much, much more will be asked." That passage I find to be very interesting, because I have long questioned and long had a problem with the Bible having to do with, what about people who never read the dang book, never got access to it, or maybe were told lies about it, or maybe they read it and they just did not understand it, and maybe they were honestly seeking the truth, but they just ended up in the wrong place. I was like, do those people go to hell? I mean, like, do those people deserve to be punished? that's always been a big question for me. This passage, though, I feel like illuminates that a little bit. It says, the one who knows his master's will and does not get ready or does not do what his master wants will be beaten with many blows. In other words, somebody who, if you're a Christian, if you buy into this sort of thing, in other words, a Christian who knows what God wants him to do, and does not do it, and who does not get ready and does not do what his master wants, will be punished far more severely than someone who does not know. Like, I don't know what happened to all the, to the people that have never heard. But I feel like from this passage, it gives us some insight into, he would probably have mercy on these people, and some of these people, even though they never met Jesus, maybe may get into heaven. I don't know. But I think it's an idea that is worth thinking about. Now, this next passage is actually immediately following Luke 12, 47 to 48. It is Luke 49 to 53. And this has a very interesting... when I read this, I was kind of shocked that Jesus said this, but when I thought about it more, it kind of makes sense. He says, I have come to bring fire on the earth, and how I wish it were already kindled. But I have a baptism to undergo, and how distressed I am until it is completed. Do you think I came to bring peace on earth? No, I tell you but division. From now on there will be 5 in one family, divided against each other, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. They will be divided, father against son, and son against father, mother against daughter, and daughter against mother, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. That sounds like, Jesus came to divide people and screw up the unity of the world. In a way, I mean, he kind of says that, but, if you read this in context of what the rest of Jesus says, Jesus is trying to actually bring unity through his message and his sacrifice in the world. But the point here, I think, which I find very interesting, is whenever, particularly in the Judaism was all there was around this area of the world, and when Christianity popped up, that did cause a division, and families did split up, and families did fight, and families are still fighting to this very day. And just even apart from Judaism, if you're like in a non-religious family and somebody becomes a Christian, that usually causes some schisms, some arguments, some fights. I don't know, it's pretty fascinating that Jesus, he's like, I'm gonna be a problem for people as far as their friends and family go, because not everyone's gonna believe me. And those that do believe me will be persecuted. Another quick line I really liked is Luke 14, 13, and 14. Jesus says, but when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed. Although they cannot repay you, you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. When you look at the way Jesus behaved in his life, he became one of these people. He became a poor person to help poor people, and he went towards the fire, whereas a lot of people, including myself, definitely at times, you shy away from dealing with people that are difficult or considered to be scary and not to be dealt with, people that ought to, it's sometimes scary to go into very impoverished communities and try to help, and because you want to be comfortable in your own little bubble, and Jesus is like, no, don't do that. Invite them to your house, have a banquet. Although they cannot repay you, you'll be repaid later, but also, you're supposed to love these people because they're people just like you. It's pretty amazing. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, those were some of my favorite passages from the book of Luke. The problematic passages I had in Luke were pretty much the same problematic passages I had in Matthew and Mark. They were just verbatim pretty much the same thing, so I didn't think I needed to read them here. You can watch my Matthew and Mark reviews and hear what I have to say there. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, if you have read the book of Luke, please tell me what you thought of it in the comments section below. Give me your favorite verses, favorite tidbits, problematic things you found in it, perhaps contradictions or things that you thought were just wrong in the book of Luke. Leave it, all of that stuff in the comment section below. I'd love to check out your comments. And as always, if you like this video, please like it and subscribe. Tell your friends about the channel. And please, never forget to